ahead and get started. If you have a strap and or block, you might want them, so you don't feel like you have to have either of those. You may or may not want them. If you got them handy, grab them real quick. And if you don't have one, no worries, we'll modify as needed, so not a big deal. We're going to be doing some front hip flexor and quadricep work, so sometimes those props can help if you've got knee issues. Then again, you may just opt out of stuff, and that's cool too. Let's go ahead and have a seat, and we'll get started by checking in with our bodies and seeing how all of our other systems are doing. So find your straight aligned spine. Let your shoulders relax, let your jaw relax. If you're comfortable with your eyes closed, close your eyes. Take a deep breath in. Big exhale through the mouth. And just take a moment to kind of let your awareness settle in to muscles, joints, bones, organs, anything at all that you might feel. Even the spots that you think you can't feel, you can, because if something were wrong with them, you would feel them. So notice all the parts that you're not necessarily aware of. It means they're doing really well, and we want to acknowledge that too. Let's deepen and slow our breath down. Ujjayi breath if you can. And then as you're breathing deeply, check in with thought processes, emotions, energy, all of those things we always notice. And then use whatever you notice to help formulate your personal intention for your practice today. So bringing palms together in front of the heart, we just state really clearly to ourselves and to the bigger energy what it is that we need. When you are clear about that, take a deeper inhale. Exhale through your mouth. Let's go ahead and transition onto hands and knees and just limber up the spine a little bit. So we'll inhale and arch and exhale and round in cat-cow stretches. And then when you feel like you're ready, go ahead and take a child's pose on an exhale. And then we'll scoot forward into Sphinx, do a little bit more spine lengthening, because honestly, we all need that all the time. We are vertical creatures. And while gravity is very helpful, it's not always very kind. And so we compress slightly throughout the day as we are upright. So it's a nice way to decompress. And then go ahead and turn your toes under and take your first downward facing dog. And please feel free to do any little movements like pedaling the feet or whatever if you need to. And then find stillness for a moment. Walk your feet forward. Keep your knees bent. Totally relax your neck. Let's take a couple of breaths just dangling and ragdoll. And then on your next inhale, reach the arms all the way up and overhead. As you exhale, palms together in front of your heart. Take a moment and allow yourself to feel really rooted and grounded and connected to the earth. And then let's inhale, reach the arms up. As you exhale, fold forward. Inhale, look up halfway. And exhale, back down. Go ahead and step back with your left foot to come into your lunge. And give yourself a breath or two to just let the hips sink and kind of find your way here. Make sure your alignment is good. We will ease into everything today. But just to kind of start dipping our toe into the water, so to speak, as you're in your lunge, see what it feels like to maybe straighten the left leg all the way or straighter, depending upon your body. And maybe once the leg is straight, let the hips drop a little closer to the mat. See if you can get a little bit of sensation on the front of your left hip. And then let's go ahead and drop the left knee down. Extend your right leg. Get into that right hamstring a little bit. And then we'll go back into the front of the left hip. I want you to bend your right knee. Bring your hands to the top of your right thigh. We're totally focusing on left front hip. So you're gonna slightly tilt the pelvis back. You're gonna feel your left buttock, your left glute tighten. Keep that tightness because that causes a reflex release on the front of the hip. Allow the hips to move forward with the left glute tight until you feel the front of your left hip. Hold that for a moment. Keep your left glute tight. Take your left hand to the floor. Reach the right arm behind you. And if you can, look at your right thumb. Keep left glute tight, but let your left hip continue to move forward and down. Now, only if your knees are happy with it, this is optional. You can bend your left knee, grab hold of that left foot with your right hand, which is already reaching back. If you keep the pelvis tilted back, in other words, if you keep your left glute tight and you apply a small amount of pressure to this left foot, then you're going to start to feel the front of the left thigh along with the hip. All right, that's enough of that. Release your left foot. Step back onto your hands and knees and wag your tail. Even if you're about to do a regular vinyasa, I suggest you take a quick child's pose first. That will kind of shorten up that left hip flexor, which deserves a break for a moment. Those of you doing regular vinyasas, off you go. The rest of us will go ahead and scoot forward into Sphinx or Cobra. And then downward facing dog. So this down dog, we're gonna step the left foot forward and just hold your lunge for a couple of breaths. Again, just kind of let your body sort of find its way here because this is literally the beginning of the second side. And once you've been here for a moment, play with straightening your right leg, maybe even pushing through the right heel. And then see if you can allow your pelvis to drop. It might be like unnoticeable to anyone but you as far as sensation goes. You want to just start to get into the front of the right hip. Then we'll drop the right knee down, extend the left leg, get into your left hamstring a little bit. Bend your left knee, hands on top of the left thigh. So we're gonna tilt the pelvis back. You wanna feel your right buttock tighten now. That right glute stays tight. The hips move forward until you feel a stretch on the front of the right hip. So we're really just trying to be super aware of sensation in the front of the right hip. Keep your right glute tight. Right hand comes to the floor. Left arm just reaches behind you. Let the hips continue to move forward. So this should be a little more exciting in the front of your right hip. And remember, this is plenty. Don't feel like you have to do any more than this. Only if you want to, would you try and bend your right knee, grab the right foot, and maybe apply a little bit of pressure so that you feel the front of your right thigh. We'll release out of that, step forward to a standing forward bend and hold that for a couple of breaths. Your standing forward bend is a nice counter pose. And then on your next inhale, reach the arms all the way up and overhead. Exhale, palms together in front of your heart. Inhale, reach the arms up. Exhale, fold forward. Inhale, look up halfway. And exhale, back down. We're going to step back with the left leg. Big step back. Hold your lunge for a moment. Now, drop your left knee down. If you're using a block, it would make things more interesting. So if you don't want intense feelings, don't use a block. If you do want to feel a little more, because some of you guys are kind of twisted like I am and you want the whole shebang, then you would put your block at the flattest level underneath your left knee. I make mine mirror the length of my mat so that I've got plenty of room. Whether you have a block under your left knee or not, you're going to come up with your hands on top of your right thigh again. This time, all I'm going to ask you to do is scoot your right foot forward a significant amount. So when you look down, your right foot should be way farther forward than your right knee. Now, all we're going to do is the same stuff that we did before. You're going to tighten your left glute, which means you're tilting the pelvis back, and you're going to let your hips move forward. And that should be a little bit deeper stretch. Even if your knee is on the ground, with that right foot farther forward, your hips will move farther forward and you'll feel more stretch. Now, only if you're extra spunky today, again, purely optional, this time it would be your left hand reaching back to perhaps get your left ankle. And then we release it all. I'd like you to step straight to downward facing dog, maybe even pedal the feet. Those of you who are using a block, you can just slide it over to the right side, because now we're going to step the left foot forward. Remember, you don't have to use a block. It's fine to do this on the floor. If you are using a block, drop your right knee onto the block. If you're not, let your right knee come to the mat. And come on up, hands on top of your left thigh. Again, all I'm going to ask you to do is scoot your left foot way forward. Don't hold back. Get it way out in front of you. And then tighten your right glute, tilt the pelvis, let the hips move forward, and take your time here. So if you want to, you can reach back with your right hand and get that right ankle or calf or even your pants and let the hips move a little farther forward. It gets pretty intense. If it's too much for you, please don't do it. And then we're going to release out and again go straight to downward facing dog stretch. From here, we're just going to walk the feet forward to a standing forward bend. Inhale, reach the arms all the way up. Exhale, palms together in front of the heart. So you're going to separate your feet about hip bone or sit bone distance apart. You're going to step your left leg back, spin your heel flat. Take as much time as you need to get your alignment for warrior one. So we want to really be able to work this properly for the hip flexor stretch that it is. So you want your right foot parallel to the long sides of the mat. Your right knee is bent. Your right knee is pressing out towards the little toe. If you can, your left heel is flat. Your left leg is straight. Don't do that little bent knee thing. Left leg totally straight.
and you're rotating your hips so that they face forward. Once you get that, arms are overhead. Do your best. Try and tighten your left buttock, your left glute, and maybe bend a little deeper into that right knee, or think of it as letting your hips go a little closer to the floor. I want you to try and find sensation in the front of your left hip. Now, from here, we're gonna lift off into a dancer. If you need to hang on to something or whatever, that's fine. If you need to use a strap, that's fine. We'll do that again in a moment. You can even grab your pants. You'll be standing on your right foot. So if you can, you're just gonna reach back and grab your left foot. This is all about the hip today. So tilt your pelvis, push that left leg back, and then begin to pull it back even more with your left arm until you feel the front of your left hip. So left glute should be tight here. As you come up, you're gonna put your left foot down beside your right foot and bring your palms to prayer. Step back with your right leg now. Same thing, take your time to get your alignment. So if you can, your right heel is flat and your right leg is straight. Left knee is bent. As much as your body allows, you're trying to rotate your hips forward. And then once you get that, you tighten that right glute and maybe let the hips drop a little closer to the mat. You're just trying to find sensation in the front of your right hip. And then same thing from here. We're just gonna lift off into a dancer. Remember, it's okay if you grab your pants or whatever. This doesn't have to look pretty. We're just trying to get the front of that right hip to open. So you'll just reach back with your right hand, your right foot, ankle, pants, whatever. You're welcome to use a strap. Tilt your pelvis. The leg moves back. The right glute tightens so that you can feel this on the front of your right hip. And as you come back up, you'll put your right foot down beside your left foot, palms together. Inhale, reach up. Exhale, fold forward. You may hold your forward bend for a couple of breaths. This is your counter pose. We're gonna step back with our right foot. Go ahead and drop your right knee down. I'm gonna recommend you keep the toes of the right foot turned under. Come on up with your hands on your left thigh. So again, a block is optional. You're welcome to use a block in your right hand if you like. We're not doing this for chest opening, we're doing this for hip opening, and what it looks like is kind of like a lunging camel. So if you're using your block in your right hand, your block goes beside your right ankle or heel. If you're not using a block, do your best. You can even put your hand on your calf, or you can put your hand on your heel, but once you get wherever you're going, here's what I'd like you to do. Tighten your right glute, let the hips move forward until you start to feel this on the front of that right hip. Now, if you want some chest stretch, you can take your left arm up and back, but you don't have to. You can steady yourself with your left hand on your left thigh. Right glute is tight, hips are moving forward, and you're breathing. Come on up from that. Hands to the mat, left knee meets right knee. Go into a child's pose. Even if you're doing a regular vinyasa, take your child's pose first. You've earned it. And then if you want, you can take off for a regular vinyasa. The rest of us will scoot into Sphinx and take the opportunity to lengthen the spine. And then downward facing dog. From your downward facing dog, right foot steps forward. Go ahead and drop your left knee down, but keep left toes turned under. Come on up with your hands on your right thigh. Again, if you're using a block, and please feel free to anytime you like, it would be in your left hand and it would come back by your left ankle. If you're not using a block, you want to try and get your left hand onto your calf or ankle or heel. Then you tighten your left glute. Then you let the hips start to move forward. And you should feel this pretty intently on the front of your left hip. Remember, if you want chest opening, you can reach your right arm back. But I want you to keep your focus on the front of the left hip, so that's all optional. And then we come on up from that, hands to the mat, take that right leg back to meet the left leg, and child's pose. If you're doing a regular vinyasa, take off. The rest of us will take one more Sphinx here. Lengthen. And then we'll all meet up in downward facing dog. From this down dog, walk your feet forward. Big inhale, come up. Exhale, palms together in front of the heart. Now, if you have a strap, we're going to use it for dancer. If you don't have a strap, no worries, because really still the emphasis is all on the hips, okay? And by the way, you're welcome to hang on to something if you need to. So what we're doing with the strap, in the event that it's hard for you to catch your foot or ankle and open the hip, and the reason I say this, I have some people who are able to get their ankle, but you see where my knee is? It's in front of my hip, so this is shortened. If you can't hang on to that and get your leg back behind you, then you would want to use a strap if you can, or grab your pants or something. We want the leg behind us. I'll go ahead and show you with the strap. You don't have to use both hands, it's completely up to you. So let's stand on the right foot first. I'm gonna switch that out and move my left foot. Let's stand on the right foot first. If you're holding your strap in your left hand and your palm is up, what you can do is bend the knee and just point your left elbow at the ceiling. And you don't even have to use your right hand if you don't want to, you can hang on. But if you can, you reach back with both hands. And here's the idea. You're gonna tighten that left glute, so your left buttock tightens, the knee presses back, and then you pull up with your arms. So we actually wanna use the strap to pull the leg up as we tighten that left glute so that we can get sensation in the front of the left hip. And then release. We'll do the same thing on the other side. So remember, if you want to hang on with one hand, it's fine. This is all about getting the hips to open. So if you're using a strap, loop your right foot. And by the way, if you're not, grab your pants or something and just really work on getting the leg back and up. If you're using a strap, your right hand will face palm up so that as you bend your right knee, you can just point your elbow to the ceiling. Maybe use both hands on the strap, maybe not, up to you. But you would like to tighten your right glute and then press the right knee back and then begin to pull up with your strap or your foot or whatever you're hanging on to if you've got something. Keep your right glute tight. We're trying to feel sensation in the front of the right hip. And release. You can drop your strap for now. Feet together, palms together at the front of the mat. Inhale, reach up. Exhale, fold forward and hold your forward bend for a couple of breaths. This is your counter pose. From here, go ahead and just step straight back to downward facing dog. Stretch your spine out. Then we're going to drop down to hands and knees. If it's okay with your knees,
We're gonna do that kind of like, it's sort of like a twisted dancer from the knees. The reason I'm giving you advance warning is like, if you can't reach back and grab opposite hand and foot, you could always use your strap here if you've got one. What we're gonna do is reach the right hand back, try and get that left foot or ankle, and then if you feel balanced enough, tighten your left glute and pull your left leg up, up, up towards the ceiling. The more you tilt the pelvis and tighten the left glute, the more we get back into the left hip. Take one more breath. Release down. You can wag if you need to. And then we'll do the other side. Reach back with your left hand to your right foot or ankle or even the pants. If you can, you lift that leg up. You tighten your right glute. And you lift the leg up towards the ceiling, keeping pelvis tilted, kind of like tucking your tailbone under, so that you feel this in the front of your right hip. Release that out. Give yourself a little tail wag and take a child's pose. So if you're doing vinyasas, do your thing, but meet us in Cobra. If you guys are with me in child's pose, scoot forward onto your stomach, but this time have your hands under your shoulders. I'd like your big toes to touch and your heels to touch. When you do that, you're gonna feel your buns tighten, right? We've been doing that a lot today. Tighten your glutes, push your pubic bone into the mat, barely lift your chest, just until you start to feel the front of the hips. So you should not feel this in your low back. You should feel it in the hips. Take one more breath. And then downward facing dog and stretch. From your down dog, drop down to your knees. Now, if you have a block, you're probably going to want to use it here. If your knees are extra sensitive, you might want to skip this. And if you are going to skip it, you can go straight to Dandasana because we're coming into our seated poses next. I'm just kind of giving you a heads up. If this doesn't work for you, extend your legs out and take a couple of breaths. So we're going to go into a one-legged thunderbolt or hero's pose, right? So if you have extremely sensitive knees, but you want to try this, take your block at the highest level and see if you can sit back on it. If that's too much flexion at the knee, then you're going into Dandasana. If you can do this, then you're going to extend your left leg out. Now, some of you guys have better flexibility. So maybe you just use your block at the lowest level. Or maybe you don't use a block. It depends on you, right? So for me, my right knee is a little tweaky. I am on the lowest level of my block, but I'm using it today. When I look at my right leg, the second toe aligns with the lower leg bones. And obviously I'm not sitting on it. I'm sitting like on the big toe side of it. If you can, you lean back onto your hands. You push your right knee strongly into the mat and slightly lift your hips. What you should feel is the top of your right thigh gets a crazy good stretch. Take a couple of breaths. And then just kind of rock your weight a little bit to your left glute. Extend your right leg out. Same thing applies on the other side, and it might feel very different. So if you need to, start on the highest level of your block again, or go wherever you need to. So on my left side, I don't use a block. Maybe on your left side, you don't even do it. It just depends on your knee, right? So honoring your body, maybe you're in the left side of hero's pose, maybe not. Whether you're on a block or not, lean back on your hands and press your left knee into the floor and kind of lift the hips a little. It doesn't take much to get a really good stretch on the front of that left thigh. Take one more breath. And then extend your leg out. And we're going to join anybody that needed to go straight to Dandasana. Thanks for waiting for us. Extend your legs
Find a straight spine, relax your shoulders, activate those legs, and just pause for a moment. Midpoint check-in and staff pose. Noticing how your body's doing. Noticing the breath, thoughts, emotions, energy. Maybe even bringing back to mind your intention. And then let's give these hip flexors a tiny break for a moment. And go ahead and lean forward over both legs and just get a nice seated forward bend. And then come on up from that. We're gonna do a quick boat pose. Of course we are, because they're hip flexors and it's good to strengthen and lengthen. And then you get to do everything else on your back. Yay, and by the way, once you get to your back, you'll wanna make sure you've got your block within reach. Okay, so for our boat pose today, we're just gonna do a basic boat pose. I'm gonna go ahead and spin around. I'm not gonna make you twist or do anything weird, but I am gonna ask you to hold it and be mindful of your posture. If you start to fatigue and lose form before I say we're done, just roll onto your back. So we're gonna begin by bending the knees, reaching behind the thighs. Don't let your body hunch around. I want you to lift your chest, very straight spine. Lift your feet, lift your chest again, extend your arms. For some of you, this is where you're gonna stay. Some of you, you'll lift your chest again and extend your legs. Now you do have to breathe while you're here. If you start feeling your back rounding or if your legs start shaking and dropping, you can just roll onto your back. We're here just a few more breaths. Keep that chest lifted. One more inhale and exhale. You can do it. And then put your feet down. Roll onto your back. Make sure you've got your block within reach. Hug your knees in and rock side to side. All right, so we are going to start with a bridge pose using the block, but don't get too excited because it's not restorative bridge yet. You get that after. This one is going to make you work. And even if you're keeping your spine neutral, you can still open the front part of the hips. I want you to take your block, if you've got one, and put it between your knees at the skinniest level. If you don't have a block, I want you to actually squeeze your knees together. Either way, big toes touch, heels are slightly separated, just like always. Now, squeeze that block as if it's a lump of coal and you want a diamond. Squeeze hard and then lift your hips. Maybe a little, maybe a lot, but as you're squeezing your block, also squeeze your glutes and try and tilt your pelvis back. Think about pubic bone moving up. Squeeze your block, squeeze your glutes, pelvis tilts. Breathe. You should be feeling the top part of your thighs and the front of your hips. One more breath. And then as you exhale, lower down. Just pause for a moment. Take your block out from between your knees. Depending upon your back, either at low level or mid level, you're going to slide the block up underneath your sacrum. Now you get to do that supported bridge. You've earned it. You want to make sure that your spine feels comfortably neutral. Your big toes should still touch. Heels should still be separated. Knees are the same distance apart as your heels. And now you should be able to relax and just feel a slight, much gentler opening on the front of your hips and the front of your thighs. Couple more breaths here. On your next inhale, Lift your bum up, take your block out from underneath you, slowly roll your spine back down. Hug your knees in and rock side to side. Now, if you don't happen to have a block, you might want to roll up a towel or fold a pillow in half or something for this next one. So it's a restorative front hip opener. I think most of you guys have done this with me before. We're going to put the block back up underneath our sacrum at the lowest level. And at least for me, I usually move it a wee bit closer to my tailbone than I do for supported bridge. So it's a little closer to my feet, in other words. Here's what I'd like you to do. I'd like you to hug your left knee into your chest and then slide your right heel all the way out onto the floor till your right leg is straight. Stretch through your right leg and then totally relax it. Now, when you relax your right leg, chances are your knee is going to bend and your foot's going to flop, and that's okay. You can't get the stretch here unless your right leg is relaxed. Once you get your right leg totally relaxed on the floor, you pull your left knee into your chest even more. You should feel your pelvis tilt like a fulcrum on that block. And there's a sweet spot that should have a very gentle, very subtle right front hip opening sensation. When you find that, all I want you to do is relax as much as possible and just breathe. Slow, deep breaths. Few more breaths. The longer you're here, the more you should become aware of that right front hip. Last breath in this position. Now, I'd like you to go ahead and bend your right knee. Right foot is flat on the floor, right knee is bent. Release your left knee. So it's almost like being in supported bridge again. Hug your right knee into your chest lightly. Extend your left leg all the way out. So you're sliding your left heel along your mat until your left leg is totally straight. Then you're completely relaxing it, which means it's probably going to draw up a little bit. Your knee will bend a little bit. Your foot will flop a little bit. That's all good. Keep it totally relaxed on the ground. And then you pull the right knee in a little bit deeper until you feel your pelvis tilt on the block. And you should feel a very gentle, subtle stretch on the front of your left hip. All you have to do is stay completely relaxed and breathe slow, deep breaths. Make those little micro adjustments as you need to, but keep your left leg totally relaxed. Just a few more breaths. And then just start to slide your left foot flat. Put your right foot down beside your left foot. Adjust your block if you like. You are about to be rewarded with Vipariti Karani, which means legs up the wall, except we're doing it without the wall. And if your pelvis is in the right spot on the block, you should feel like your legs are just floating in the air. So in other words, once you get your legs vertical, if it feels like you're having to use energy or muscles to keep them up, then adjust where your block is. And if you can't seem to get it right and you've got a wall nearby, please feel free to stick your legs up a wall or even rest them over the seat of a chair or the couch. But this is a really nice restorative pose. If you can find that sweet spot and just let the legs float, oh, it's so pleasant. So we're here for about 6 slow breaths. On your next exhale, just slowly bring your feet back down to the floor. Breathe in as you lift your bum up and take your block out from underneath you, and then exhale, just let your pelvis find the floor again. Hug your knees in and rock side to side. And then you don't have to use a block for this, but it kind of makes it extra pleasant. If you have a block and you want, put it at the skinniest level between your knees. We're just doing a gentle twist today. You're going to drop both bent knees over to the right and let your left arm open out to the left. If it's all right with your neck, your head turns to the left and you just breathe. Two more breaths on this side. And then on your next inhale, you can just bring both knees back up. As you exhale, drop them over to the left. Right arm opening out to the right. Let your head turn to the right if that's okay with your neck. And then just breathe. Last breath on this side. On your next inhale, go ahead and bring those legs back up. You can move your block off to the side. You are done with it. Thank you, block. Hug your knees in. Rock side to side. And then I want you to go ahead and reach down and grab the outside edges of your feet and explore a little bit. Just do a little happy baby. See how everything is feeling. So one of the interesting things about working the hip flexors, which includes the iliopsoas, is we frequently forget that those muscles also attach to the low back. People that have tight front hips usually have weak glutes and painful low back issues. So the work that you did today, even though it was really focused on the front of your hip, actually had positive benefits overall for your low back and your posture, because I kept asking you to tighten your glutes, and so that made them stronger, and your low back should have released a little bit. So a few more breaths here, just wiggling around in your happy baby, whatever feels good to you. And then when you feel ready, let's go ahead and place the feet flat on the mat, ankles and knees together. And we'll do a few of those gentle hip rolls. Just let both knees drop to one side as you exhale. Bring them back up as you inhale. Drop them the opposite direction as you exhale. Just keep rolling. Let's go one more time in each direction. And then the next time that your knees return to the center, let them drop open. Let the soles of the feet touch each other. Knees are wide. Just take a couple of breaths here. The next time you breathe in, I'd like you to tilt the pelvis back. Flatten out your low back a little bit. So you're just pressing the low back into the mat. It allows the muscles on either side of the spine to lengthen. The next time you breathe out, just release and relax. One more time, inhale, flatten the back. Exhale and release. Now, as you extend your legs out, you prepare for Shavasana. My recommendation, since we did a lot with hip flexors and glutes, is once your legs are straight out and at the angle that you want, I suggest you do a little internal external rotation. In other words, roll your thighs in and out a couple of times and then just let them flop. They'll either flop open or flop closed, either is fine. Then once you've done that, just double check those larger glute muscles. Those are very dense, strong muscles. They help us stay upright. Make sure they feel really relaxed. So sometimes we hold a little remaining tension in the glutes. Let it go. And then lengthen your low back, relax your neck, let your hands come below your shoulders, preferably with your palms up. Make sure you have some space between your teeth, your jaw is relaxed. Eyes are gently, softly closed. Your forehead is smooth. Big inhale through the nose. Big exhale through the mouth. And with that, we let go of control of our breath. So just take a few moments to feel your body completely releasing, relaxing, settling into the floor. Feel your breath responding to that. In other words, your breath becomes quieter because it's gentler and shallower. And then as everything kind of seems to just settle down and even out, bring your awareness to the area of your second energy center, Svadhisthana chakra. It's the second chakra. It is a couple of inches up from your tailbone and also a couple of inches forward. Corresponds to our bladder. So it's lower abdomen. The work you did today is kind of governed by that energy center. And that center has to do with our sexuality, but it also has to do with our creativity. And that can be creativity in any realm, whether that is artwork, music, writing, whatever it is. And so we're going to use what we've done to work with our creativity of our thoughts and therefore our reality. You have probably heard people say that your thoughts create your reality. And it is true. You can think of it as a shift in perspective. There's a lot of ways to word it. But the truth is, what you think about something is going to govern your emotions about it. Your thoughts are not real, but your emotions are, because they affect your body and therefore affect your life. So when you can create the right kind of thought, you can create the right emotions and the right life. So what I'd like you to do for the moment is, if you need a visual, you can imagine orange, like an orange sphere or disc. in the area of your second chakra. If you need a sound, there is a seed sound that goes along with this, and it's the syllable VUM with a V, VUM. But I'd like you to keep your focus there for a moment, feeling into the energy of this area, the energy of creation. And then I'd like you to think of a single thing that you would like to create in your life, particularly if it's a quality or a way of being. So not like trying to create something outside of you from thin air, but more like trying to create how you are, how you can be. So I'm just kind of going to grab a word out of the air. Let's just say strength or strong. You would create the thought, I am strong. And you would create that feeling of strength in your body, and you would create that feeling of inner fortitude. And by simply doing that, you change your perspective and your attitude and your way of being, and you become strong. Or maybe it's patient or loving or understanding, whatever it might be. You decide what it is that you would like to create. And I want you to generate a thought around that and also a feeling around that so that you can truly embody it. Check back in with your body now on the mat, allowing whatever you've created to really linger in you, to let it truly become who you are, how you are, your way of being. Notice your thoughts, notice your emotions. Start to move your fingers and toes a little bit. Start to deepen your breath. When you're ready, take a deeper inhale, spread your fingers and toes. Exhale through your mouth, relax them. Even deeper inhale, stretch, stretch, stretch through your arms and legs. And then exhale and relax them. Bend your knees. Maybe today you'd like to hug them in. Just that final little counter pose for the hip flexors. And then when you're ready, roll to your right side. And then finally use your left hand in front of your chest and press up into sitting. Coming back to that same straight, aligned posture that you had at the beginning of class. Noticing how things feel and if they're any different from when you started. So for our breath work today, if you can, I'd like you to try and work with all 4 parts of the breath. Part 1 is the inhale, we bring air into our lungs. Part 2 is we hold the breath inside the lungs. Part 3 is we breathe all of the air out. And part 4 is you hold the breath out of the lungs. In other words, you pause before you breathe in. Now, a little caveat here is if you have really severe allergies and it's hard to breathe in anyway, you may not want to hold your breath. If you have asthma or anxiety around holding your breath, then you're going to skip both holds. So please don't feel like you have to do this. But if you can, what I'd like to have you do is do it as a 2-1-2-1 ratio breath. What that means is, let's just say that you inhaled for 4 seconds, you would hold your breath for 2, you would exhale for 4 seconds, hold the breath out for 2. Or maybe it's inhale 10, hold for 5, exhale 10, hold it out for 5. Whatever the case may be, you should not struggle. You shouldn't be gasping air in after you've held the breath out or exploding air out after you've held the breath in. You should be able to do it pretty easily. So you're going to have to find that right amount. And if you're used to really prolonging your exhale, which I usually ask you to do, it means you're going to have to breathe out faster, right? So 2-1-2-1 ratio breathing. If you're not comfortable with the breath holds, just do an equal inhale and exhale. Okay, so straight spine, lift the chest, relax the shoulders, all through the nose, off you go. Finish out the breath you're on. And as you do finish out, just keep the eyes closed and take a few moments to observe how you are. So how your body feels as a result of your physical practice and relaxation. How you feel overall as a result of perhaps creating a quality or way of being during your relaxation. Also just observing if you were true to your intention, and don't judge that, just let it go, but observe. And slowly bring your palms together in front of your heart. Taking a moment in gratitude for the capacity to perhaps control our thoughts, creating good thoughts, good energy, good life. So thoughts are in fact energy, and whatever you think, you're putting out into the world. So it's better to put out something good than to put out something bad. So it's nice to have the power of creation even within our minds. Take one more huge breath in through the nose. Big exhale through the mouth. We bring our palms pressed together at our forehead to remind us to be present, to be in the moment. Our palms are pressed together in front of our lips to remind us to speak our truth. And we bring our pressed palms together in front of our hearts, reminding us to keep these beautiful hearts open, to always come from a place of kindness, compassion, and unconditional love. Thank you so much for joining me today. Namaste.